So welcome to Vegas Circle with Paki and Chris.
Thank you.
And we're excited to sit down with the CEO and co-founder of Pigeonly, which is a platform that makes it easy for people to search and find and communicate with incarcerated loved ones through a mobile device. So you got that whole copyright on everything. We got Mr. Frederick HUTSON. So welcome to the circle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. So you got a long story, man. So we're able to see a little bit of your background. So just kind of jumping right in.
Yeah.
Originally from Brooklyn, New York, you served some time in the Air Force, and then you actually spent some time out in Florida, my understanding. But what's crazy is you got multiple businesses that you built over a period, one being a shipping company is what I actually found. So you built a shipping company up, but got caught up back, from my understanding, in the drug game and building a marijuana business and shipping business. And you were doing from Mexico to Florida, from my understanding.
Mexico, Arizona, from Arizona to Vegas, from Vegas to Florida.
Oh, so you weren't playing no games.
I was ahead of my time because now you can go buy it in the store. So I was too early. I was way too early.
I didn't want to ask you that just because it's legal down. That makes you...
it was too early. I was way too early.
So what year was this? Yeah,
this was 2004, 2005, 2006 at that time.
Okay. Yeah. And so you actually served almost 60 months? It was like 50-something months in prison?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so that just rack your brain. Go right ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So ultimately, the backstory is a little bit, crazy.
Intense.
Pretty intense. And, ultimately, when you're incarcerated, what led you to the point where you thought about this idea and you wanted to jump into it and, identify the concept for Pigeonly?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was just observing my surroundings, and I would see that how hard and difficult it was for people to stay in touch with their loved ones on the outside. And then I would just notice that the people who didn't have the financial means to stay in touch, they would be the same ones that I would see come back over and over again. And it wasn't until I got out where I saw that my general observation was backed up by like 40 years of research that showed that that communication, education, two most important factors when it comes to recidivism, or people returning back to jail. So then I was able to make the connection. But to answer your question, while I was there, I just felt it had to be a better way. I knew that there was services and there was other things out there that allowed people to, do everything on your phone. Because this was around a time where there was like all the ads for this app, for this app, for that. This when the iPhone was just coming out, just starting to get popping. And I said, so why isn't there an app for this? Why isn't there a way for people to easily communicate with their loved ones? Why do I have to go to the post office to send photos? Why do I have to get something printed out? Why do I have to do all these steps? And that's where the idea started. Now, I had no idea it was going to grow into what it is now. But, where it started in the beginning, I was just trying to solve a very simple problem. I wanted to make it easy for someone to be able to upload a photo, press the send button, and then that be received by whoever their incarcerated loved one was.
So, for people that maybe don't understand how the original process was and why this is kind of a game changer for that, what was it like before and kind of what is the process, through the
Sure. App? So in the beginning, back then, the only really way that you communicate with someone was either through high-cost phone calls, or it was letters, right? Those are really only the main ways back then. And the process then, you would have to go to either a Walgreens or CVS if you didn't have a photo printer, print the photos out, then go to the post office and mail it, right? So it took a number of steps to do. And then what we just created was a way that you can you already have the photos on your phone already. So we just created a simple way for you to upload that and send that directly to your loved one without having to go to the post office, without having to take additional steps. So it's really the convenience factor.
So essentially, is it like you upload the photo into the app and then the photo gets mailed to the...
Yeah, so we actually send a physical, tangible photo, and we still do that today.
That's great.
And it's a physical, tangible, and we send it in a way that facilities are comfortable with it because, another big part of our business now is contraband elimination, so preventing contraband from coming into institutions. So we learned early on that certain things make prison facilities nervous, right? Because, there's ways that you can incorporate, whether it be fentanyl or K2 or whatever the most popular synthetic drug is at the moment. It's easily incorporated into paper or ink or whatever, right? So you have to be able to create something, design something in a way that the facilities can see it. They can be confident that, it's safe. Or they have the knee-jerk reaction, which we've seen happen in a few places where they'll ban, in Florida, they're banning greeting cards, or they'll ban letters. You can only send postcards and things like that, which makes it harder for people to stay in touch when you make it more and more restrictive. Just imagine, trying to stay in touch with your child using postcards only. It's kind of crazy, right? So that's one of the things that we saw very early, that we wanted to make it possible so that, hey, you can accept this and it can be safe. You don't put your staff at risk, you don't put the population at risk, but it still allows people to communicate, very efficiently and at low cost.
How is those objectives to try to get through all that? I know you got plenty of stories, but that's very hard to do.
Yeah, I think, when you don't know what you don't know, you kind of go into stuff not really understanding or have an idea of how hard it's going to be. or how much infrastructure you have to build to even make your idea a reality, right? So it was almost that ignorance that, made me go through with it, because had I known it was going to be as hard as it was, I might have done something. There's easier ways to make money,
of course,
right?
Yeah,
so
of course.
I think in a lot of ways that ignorance actually allowed us to build a good company and build a big company, right? It's because we didn't really know. We was just building the steps as we went. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was normal. There was no normal, right? So we built a lot of stuff from scratch. When I first thought about it, I thought I was just going to go buy a printer from Best Buy or somebody and just have somebody in the office printed. But it doesn't work. Our printer is about the size of this desk, right? And it's it's thousands and thousands of prints, right? So it's way different than what I envisioned. But again, that ignorance of just figuring out one step that's in front of you at a time allows you to, before you look up, you actually build something big.
Yeah. So because it seems like to Paki's point. Prisons are meant to be, very restrictive. Right?
Yeah,
obviously, like they're hard to navigate through. They have very strict policies, procedures, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And I feel like that whole dynamic is really challenging to navigate through. Like, when you're trying to get the approval to allow these things to happen, you have to go to the prison systems and like each one and get approval for that.
What's interesting is that we built our entire company to not have to have any buy-in or sign off by institutions. So we basically designed it to work from a consumer's point of view. So as any consumer, if you was to send this yourself, but you had a better way of doing it, what would that look like? So it didn't really require any approval or co-sign, I should say, of institutions. However, they were happy they were getting it that way, right? So it was a nod in that sense. But it wasn't until later when we started building the government side of our business where we actually started working directly with institutions. We have a contract with Clark County and other places that, they're saying, okay, we actually want to contract with you guys because we like the way you guys are doing things and you guys are making, our process and our life easier while still allowing people to stay in touch at low cost, right? So that was the big piece.
Yeah, you guys are built out. So I was reading a couple years back, you guys are doing about 2 million phones per minute for customers.
Yeah.
And you were building it on 88 countries? Is that my understanding?
We have customers in like 88 countries.
Wow. Yeah. So is that still the number now, or is it how much volume are you guys doing now?
It's probably that was a while ago, so it's probably a lot bigger now. I don't even count it anymore. But we have customers all over. We send mail to pretty much every facility in the United States, and a lot of customers overseas use us because if you had to send, a letter from England, for example, we have a huge base in the UK. The amount of time that takes, or if you wanted to use a phone call, it's extremely expensive, right? So it's already expensive here in the States. It even gets, twice or quadruple that from international, right? So that's really the value proposition. So from our side, consumers use us because we either make something convenient or we make something cost less. And that's really the two reasons that they choose to use us. And then on the government side, governments are using us because it allows them to prevent contraband, allows them to keep their staff safe without them being overly restrictive to mail, right? Over-restrictive with mail. And that's the big thing we wanted to do, is that our mission from the beginning was make communication accessible. Because as you pointed out, institutions have the tendency just to get more and more restrictive as time goes. They taking more things away. And the reasons for that is, security or concerns around security. So our goal and mission was to really, we can take that off the table. Can you guys relax a little bit? And that's really what we was able to do.
Yeah, so you have to build that trust. Build that trust to be able to prove it.
And when you're doing, that number of minutes and that amount of photos, how was it kind of developing that infrastructure to be able to handle all of these different tasks? Because everyone.
I was about to say that's the first thing I thought.
2 minutes, like it's like a more normal. Like, what is the normal call line? Like, is it like 2 minutes? Is it? Can you have unlimited minutes?
Our average phone call is about 15 minutes on average.
Okay.
There's hundreds of thousands of phone calls going every single day.
Yeah, that's wild.
But I think for us, so it's with the technology what's happened over the course of the years from when we started is that there's more infrastructure that's now where you can stand up a phone company. If an entrepreneur wants to stand up a phone company, you can do that almost plug and play today. When we started, you couldn't do that, right? It was very technical, and you had to have very specific technical skills, build a very specific type of team that knew and understand how to do voice over IP and those types of things. Now there's companies like Plevo, there's companies like Twilio, and you can stand up these things, relatively quickly. If I want to stand up a phone company tomorrow, I can do that within a day, right? So it's moved that direction. But back then it required a lot of just figuring things out and step by step, getting registered with the FCC and one quick story, one of the things that we learned quickly is that one of the rules is that you have to register your customer's number, right? So the institutions have to be able to know if John Smith is receiving a call, they want to be able to have the caller ID to register back to whoever says they're making that call, right?
To verify.
So as soon as we did that, all of our customers started getting hammered with those robot calls. Because now we was registering all these numbers. They're like, yo, why are we getting all these calls? Thousands and thousands of calls, right? So we was like, oh shit, we created something. We didn't realize that solving one problem creates a new problem.
Yeah.
And that's a common thread in building a business, right? So we ended up solving that because we basically made a system that automatically could detect if a call was not originating from institution, it would automatically block it. And then only calls that originate from institution will go through, right? So that's how we solved it. But that was just an example of we had to do that in order to work with the facilities, but inadvertently created a new problem that we didn't foresee. That now you have this registered list of thousands of customers where they have the new number that they have our number that now allows, your phone to get hammered by,
everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
You calls earlier, spam call. Luckily, at least you can see it says spam
it
call.
Didn't do that back then. Back then, it didn't have to do that.
That's
it was
a lifesaver.
Yeah.
That's an absolute lifesaver. What I was so impressed with is that you hire incarcerated people.
For sure.
Too. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? What was the thought process? Were you just trying to find like employees and dealing with, because it's a challenge with dealing with employees, but has that always been like the foundation of the company?
It's our foundation from the beginning. I mean, myself being previously incarcerated, we have previously incarcerated at every level in our company, from executive level, my CTO, head of engineering, I had operations, so it's done almost on every level, every department, right? So we didn't just say we're just going to put people in customer service, for example, right? Because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent that's coming out of institutions, and most people at least people I'll come across with, they're extremely talented, and they just didn't understand. They didn't have the right product, right? So if you would switch the product and instead of being marijuana or instead of being cocaine or instead of being whatever the vice is, right? Instead of being that and you switch that to something else, you're really talking business people, right? Very entrepreneurial, wired business people. Yeah. And, I quickly saw that and I quickly realized that why should I compete in these other spaces for the same talent pool where there's an untapped, base of talent pool that's getting out every single day, that just looking for an opportunity. They're willing to work harder. They're willing to do more. They're willing to prove that they really want the opportunity and respect the opportunity. So it's just worked out for us really, really well. So
you interview well. How do you line it up? Are you vetting just like you would do any company?
Yeah. We more so like we prioritize culture fit in our company. Okay. And I rather take someone who doesn't have the level of experience that I'm looking for, but is a really strong culture fit, and we can get you the experience, right? So that's just what I prioritize. That works well for us. And then we just take our time hiring. So, one of the things, I learned from you, the late Tony Shea from Zappos, is that, we hire very slow and we fire quickly, right? So we'll really take our time to make sure somebody's a good culture fit. And then the result of that is that people have really stayed with us for a long time. So the people that we've had, they've been with us when we started, right? So we've had very little turnover, even in departments that you typically see turnover, like customer service and things like that. We don't really have that because we really take our time and we really make sure we have people that are culture fit. They care about the mission. They care about what we're building. And they actually add value and they see that they add value and they stick around.
Yeah. And it's hard because, a lot of people don't get that opportunity. You make one error, one mistake, something along those lines. You don't get an opportunity to go somewhere and really contribute. And I think, having that, especially with people that understand the product, right?
Exactly.
So when you have somebody who's been through that experience, you understand the product and you buy into it, I think you create a much more, dynamic employee, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I can see that.
As far as like the marketing base, how do you guys advertise and how do you guys get your name out there? Or it seems like you probably haven't had to because
in the beginning. In the beginning, we built the company by doing direct mail. As antiquated as that sounds, it was super, super effective. So basically, when we first started the business, we didn't really have the money or the budget to do Google ads and all the typical, online marketing stuff, right? Because, in that space, you have attorneys and you have all other companies, organizations in that space that really drive the price of online marketing up. So we had to find, a low cost way to really market and build our customer base. So what I knew from my own time is that all criminal justice information is public record, number one. Number two, I knew it was very disorganized. So we built software to be able to organize and scrape and all the criminal justice data to figure out who's in jail, where they're in jail at, estimated when time was getting out. And we turned that into a mailing list. And then we would just send mailers and just say, hey, there's an easy way for your family to send you photos. And we started getting like a 40, 50% response rate to it. Now, I was so ignorant. I didn't know what was good for a response rate for direct mail. And it wasn't until way later.
It was pretty high.
It's like direct mail is like 1 to 2% response rate, right? So it was substantial, you know, compared to what response rates were. And then, you know, it just really spread because the product was good. People enjoyed it. It really made their life easier. It was cost effective and all that. So it kind of spread. And that's the base of how we built the company. In the beginning, now we've graduated from that. But in the beginning, that's what it was based on.
And were you sending the direct mail to the people that were incarcerated or to like?
And then we let them call to mom, hey, grandma, go to this website. Here's how to send me photos more. So we talked to the person that cared the most. And then they was given the information because, you know, what we find is that when you're in that situation, any value that you can give your family member to help cope and deal with your situation, you're going to get, right? Yeah. So if I can tell you something that's going to make your life easier, if I can tell you something that's going to help you save money, if I can tell you something that's going to be a little simpler, not going to, you know, make your life inconvenient in any way, then you're happy to share that with your support network.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you never hear about people targeting, not targeting away,
but it is. It's strategic.
Selling
very strategic
to people that are incarcerated. I've realized that's the first for me. That's a very interesting concept.
It was when I was first looking up your company, I was like, this dude is very strategic. Yeah, very strategic on how you do it, and you found a niche, and
because you assume people are incarcerated like they're not a customer anymore, right? But
and then to be clear, the people inside, they don't pay us. The family member on the outside does. But they're the influencer for the person on the outside, right? So, you know, the person on the outside, they're already sending photos. They're already writing. They're already doing all these things, but they're just doing it in a very complicated and expensive way, right? So this was just like, hey, instead of, you know, paying, you know, in federal prison, it can cost upwards of $80 for the 300 minutes you're allowed to speak. And with our service, it costs $15. So it's just like it costs you more not to be my customer than to be my customer.
Is that what is the reason for that? Is it because all of them are collect calls? So you're basically
so it's just a crazy old system, right? And basically the way it works is that you have two types of calls. You have a long distance call and you have a local call. The way they determine what's local, like all of us on the outside, we have cell phones. There's no such thing as a long distance call anymore, right? Because you can call on a cell phone, whatever, right? But in that environment, a long distance call is anything that's not in the same rate center of where that facility physically is located.
Oh, wow.
And rate center are the old maps that phone companies used to use to determine long distance calls. No one uses this anymore except this industry, right? So what happens is you can literally be making a phone call across the street from where the institution is located. If that's where the line for that rate center is, that's considered a long distance call.
Oh, wow.
So because of those two rates, what we did was we used our software to always know where the institution was. So anytime a family member wanted the lowest call for their loved one, we would just create them a number that was always local to that facility. Wherever they may be in the world, didn't matter. So they always would call a local call. The inmate, when he's calling home, he'll call a Pigeonly number. That number then connects to mom's existing cell phone on that line. So every call they made was always local. So instead of paying,
props to you, man. That's a hell of an idea. Man.
So
how long did it take, like, just putting the business plan together? Like, from start, you know, you imagine you put the vision together, then to execute it. Like, how long did that take?
It was, you know, business plan from my experience it's like a living document, right? It's always changing. Yeah. And, you know, but the formal, just the beginning of the process, I think for me, it was while I was locked up. You know, I was thinking about, you know, one thing I didn't want to do was rely on somebody else to give me an opportunity. So I knew I was going to create my own. Yeah. So I would just think about, you know, what problems could I solve? Because that's how my brain works. I'm always thinking about a problem. And I know that if I solve a problem well enough, somebody's going to be more than happy to pay me for it, right? So that's really, you know, how I thought about it. So, you know, in the beginning at that time was, hey, we're just going to make something real easy for people to get photos. And that was it. And then once we launched that and got that off the ground and proved that out, you know, I discovered, you know, that there was this whole technology ecosystem in San Francisco, and there was talking about like tech companies. And again, this was the time when that was like the wave and everyone was talking about it. Now it's more distributed, but back then everything was just in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, right? So it was during that time when I discovered that, and I think it was a CNN special or something like that when I was talking about it. And I said, oh, this is interesting, right? Because at the time I was in Florida, and we didn't really have the support to really build it out. So long story short, I applied to this accelerator program, technology accelerator program, where they didn't give us any money, but they helped us learn how to communicate your idea. They helped us learn how to do a pitch deck. They helped us learn and gave us basically warm intros to their network so that you can at least, you won't be so much of an outsider anymore, right? So went through that process, and then out of my cohort, we was the only company that raised capital. We raised our first $1 million. And then once we raised that, we went on to like add all these other services. So then we added the phone service. We added greeting cards, letters, postcards, and all the other stuff. And then it started turning into more of a communication product versus just a single product, which is the phones at that time.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's like you're bypassing a lot of the institutionalized ways of doing things. The communications, the systems with the prisons. But do you feel like you can get a lot of backlash for that? Are you getting any of that pushback from like the existing telephone companies or from the institutions, or has it been pretty well received? Or
so not from the institutions, but in the beginning, we had a lot of backlash from the phone providers that we were disrupting, right? Because we were basically giving consumers the opportunity to save significant money on the phone call. So basically, the phone system institutions, they're basically a monopoly, right? Yeah. So whatever company runs the phone systems at that prison, you have no choice but to use that phone company, right? So they charge whatever they want. And a lot of times, because those contracts are usually, one, based off of the dollar amount of kickback that the phone company gives to the institution, it doesn't always go to the lowest cost provider, right? So it goes to the provider that's going to give the highest amount of kickback to the institution. The institution relies on that revenue to do their functions. So it creates this negative return for the consumer, because now the consumer doesn't get the lowest cost. The consumer ends up usually with the highest cost. So they didn't like what we were doing, right? But right around the time when we really started getting a lot of traction, the FCC had passed a law basically making it illegal, because what they would do was they would just block your number. So they would block phone numbers that were our phone numbers, right? So they would just arbitrarily just block a Pigeonly phone number so that you couldn't receive phone calls, so that it would force you to have a high-priced phone call. Eventually, the FCC was like, wait, you can't dictate to consumers what phone company they can use, right? They said, so as long as Pigeonly is a registered phone company, as long as Pigeonly is following all the rules that every other phone company has to follow, you have to treat them exactly the same as Verizon, AT&T, and anybody else. Awesome. So then they backed off after that. But there was a while, a couple of years, maybe even 3, where that was the practice, where if they would catch wind that using one of our numbers or a number that would save you money, they would block the number so that you couldn't do the calls.
That's wild. Yeah.
I think we found out it was us being a business show. I think we found out for everybody. Once you figure out the niche, they're going to bully you in a way. You know what I mean? To figure it out.
And it's very rare the FCC does something in favor.
You lucked out.
Yeah.
But thank the FCC on that one.
It was a lot of momentum building to that point, because people had for years been complaining about the predatory nation of prison phone companies, right? You have, phone calls that are as much as, $15 for a 15-minute phone call, which is crazy, right? Yeah. We don't even think about the cost of a phone no more, right? Calls are almost virtually free at this point, right? So the fact that they was charging what they were charging was just egregious. So, that's one of the things that, we really leveraged, and that momentum allowed for that law to pass that, made that work.
That's excellent. What do you wish you would have known, like, before you started this business? Now that you've built it, you passed that 5 year, you're out to the 10 year. Yeah. What do you wish you would have known?
I wish I would have focused less on having a perfect product, bringing a perfect product to market, and focus more on traction and growth earlier on. I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, we fall in love with our product. It becomes our baby. Yeah. We know how great and beautiful it can be. And we want to have every bells and whistle. We want to have every feature we can think of. And then what I would end up doing, I would just fatigue out my engineering team, right? Because every idea I had, I'll come to the office, okay, we're going to do this now. And then tomorrow, okay, we're going to do that now. And we spent so much time, building the product and trying to make it perfect. And where we could have just did one thing really, really well, and we would have gotten a lot more traction and been able to grow a lot more faster than we did during that time. Eventually I learned that lesson, but we lost, we probably burned through a few $1 million by that point, and we, went through, a few years at that point, right? So it's just, I think it's really important that, really just push out the most minimum, most valuable thing that you can do, and bring that to consumers, because you learn so much with your product in the market that you can never learn while you're still in the lab working on it, right? Yeah. And that learning is what's most valuable.
When you're building like a disruptive product like that, when you're growing fast, you're getting rapid pace, you're starting to build traction. Do you start getting to a point where you start seeing other people pop up trying to emulate that service? And how do you kind of keep your product consistently growing while you're trying to stave those people off? Or do you just kind of let it work naturally out?
It used to freak me out. I used to be really concerned and really lose sleep about, oh my God, we have somebody else copying us. And it got to the point where it's like every other week there was somebody else that was doing it, right? Because people, like, usually things are just simple, like, oh, why didn't I think of that, right? And it's not like we built something that had the barriers of entry were so high that you couldn't duplicate it. But then I realized the value is that we had a direct access to a particular market segment And I just focused on that. And instead of focusing on or worrying about what competition could be doing, I really focused my attention on just being the most innovative. So now we compete on the government side. We compete with companies that, they're billion-dollar companies, and we're beating them in contracts and stuff just because we're just more innovative than them. And we can adjust faster, we can move faster, we can change directions quickly. When a customer says, hey, it would be really nice if the product can do this. Okay, done. It can be done by next week type of thing, right? And they just can't move that fast, not that's nimble. So I realized that that's more important, that's more valuable than trying to be all things to all people. When you look at these big companies, they're always trying to be all things to all people, and they're super slow, and they miss the mark more than they hit it. So I realized our strength was that we're really focused and we're able to iterate quickly as we learn from customer feedback to really just end up with the most innovative product is really what my goal is.
Yeah. And, there's going to be a time where I'm assuming one of these large companies want to buy you out.
Of course.
Is that something you're planning on your exit, or is it still kind of hold steady and, kind of work down this path?
So I have mixed feelings about that, right? Yeah. So because I spent so much years head to head with them, there's a little bit of animosity there. But I mean, I can put that aside though if the check is right. I can get over that real quick. But I think the big thing though is that when I think about our exit strategy, it has to be something that doesn't deteriorate our mission, right? So as long as it's not, you get us out the way so that you can go back to the predatory nature you had before, then that's a problem. But I also see a path of us, getting to their size and doing it our own independently as well. So I think we have both options on the table. So just, only time will tell how that plays out. Yeah. But now that we have the government side of the business, which is complementary to the consumer side, it puts us in, it changes my perspective a little. It puts us in a different realm a little bit, where now there's a path for us to do and get just as big as they are, but doing it in a more equitable way. So
that's excellent.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I love having people like yourself on the show. Being a business show and a business podcast, you dealt with a lot of adversity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With dealing with the prison system, you figured out, this kind of riddle in a way. You know? What's some business advice or business gem that you could give our listeners that they want to start a business, or honestly, they might be in the penitentiary right now trying to come up with their mindset of their exit? What would you share with them, for what they're dealing with for adversity?
I would say the first thing, like I mentioned earlier, is just identify and focus on like what your everyday problem is, or whatever your itch is. Like build something to scratch your own itch. And I think when you do that, you're building something that's authentic to you. I think you're building something that you understand. And then you're also building something that is you're gonna have the time when it's not gonna move as well. You're gonna have time where it's gonna be you're gonna struggle, nothing's gonna go right. And if you're not working on something you actually care about, if you're not working on something that actually scratches your itch, you're not working on something that's really authentic to you, you're not going to want to stick with it, right? Yeah. There's 101 ways to make money. But to build something that's meaningful, if that's your goal, to build something that's meaningful, you want to build something that you really care about and that's authentic to you. Yeah. And something that you can just do, based off who you are.
Yeah. I'm going to steal that from you, man. That itch, I don't think nobody said that. All the interviews we've had, nobody said anything about the itch. That's a great response. Just kind of transition a little bit. We always ask our guests, favorite restaurant in Las Vegas. Yeah. Especially because you hear any downtown, so I got to hear it.
Yeah. That's what I do. Like I'm eating everywhere. That's what I do. Hey, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
You just gotta give us one gym. Maybe might be a hole in the wall spot.
What I was really rocking with, but they closed recently? Major Domo.
What is that?
It was in. Oh my god, it was so good. What is that? The best prime rib. Oh my god, it was amazing. It was in the Plaza, but they closed. So I'll pick something. Okay. Favorite restaurant at the moment. I'm not even gonna mess this up.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this right.
I'm gonna have to get that one. I'm gonna get this right.
Yeah.
Wakuda.
Okay, we're gonna edit that and make it look right. Yeah.
And the Palazzo.
Wakuda. It's a vibe. The food is good.
I'll have to check that out.
Frederick dropping some gems on us, man. So he gave us a new restaurant
we
never heard of.
Eat in the lounge part.
Okay, we definitely go check that vibe out, man. So you coming from New York? That's why I really wanted to know, because New York got some great food
for sure.
So, man, what else is on your like your goal? Like what would be the ultimate goal for, I guess you'd say, like the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say really the biggest thing for me, my goal always was to build a really big business, right? And when I think about big and I think about the impact, it's really about the amount of people we can impact as far as consumers and customers, the amount of people we can impact as far as customer employees, and then because one of the things we did unique is that when we started a company, like I got all my homeboys and guys in the hood that put money in our, it was like 2,000 here, 5,000 there. Like I'm trying to make those people rich as well, right? So for me, it's like a very wide ranging of, this opportunity was something that I was able to do and impact the lives of everyone around me at the same time.
That's what's up, man. Yeah. Man, you are very motivated, man. And I'm happy that we were able to have you come on because listeners are going to be able to see that. There's no excuse, even my children, to be able to see how you moving, man. And we're rooting for you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
What else did we forget that you want to share at all that might be on your mind?
I think we covered a lot.
That's what's up, man. You dropped some gems, man. You dropped some gems. What's your social handles people can reach out?
I am Fast Freddy on Instagram and Twitter. I'm probably the most active on Instagram more than anything else.
Okay. Well, absolute pleasure, man.
Yeah, definitely.
We're definitely rooting for you, man. And hopefully we won't sell out too quick on that check. But we wishing you luck, man. You can check us out at thevegascircle.com.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was
Thank you.
Thank you.